Welcome back to the Fulfilled Female Entrepreneur Podcast. It's your host, Cassandra Rosa, and the mission of this podcast is to help you to create a fulfilling life and business. I have Brittney Ashley on today. We are so excited to have this conversation, really talking about imposter syndrome and stepping into your authenticity. I'm excited to introduce you to Brittney. She's Brittney Ashley, the founder of The Creative Dynamics. As a proud Métis mom and passionate entrepreneur, she's driven to empower moms to work from home and create opportunities for women across Canada. I have to say, it's always good to connect with fellow Canadians here. With years of experience as an online business manager, strategist, and certified business coach, ICF accredited, a top quality services that exceed expectations. At Creative Dynamics, they're more than a business. They're a community of empowered women dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs like you. From personalized online business management to exceptional virtual assistant services, they're there to ensure your success and make a meaningful impact. Additionally, she hosts a radio show called Breaking Norms and Building Dreams, catered to dreamers and doers like you. And they have a listenership ranging from 6,000 to 600,000 listeners. I'm so excited that I'm going to be a part of it as well. So we're going to leave all the links for you to connect with Brittney. At the end, she has this beautiful bundle that she wants to share with you, really for imposter syndrome and outsourcing and scaling your business. So stay tuned to learn about that. I love this. It's so beautiful to see all the beautiful passions that you have and beautiful ways that you can serve fellow Canadians and people all over the world. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. I always love to ask all of my interviewees what fulfillment means to them. So what would your answer be for that question?
I think after having two kiddos, it's totally switched. And fulfillment to me means having that balance. And I'm still figuring out by any means. I have two little ones. I have one just turned 6 and one just turned 3. But fulfillment to me is being able to show up for them when I'm still running a business on the side, or I can really be present as a mom, as a wife. And so to me, that's fulfillment. And also being so passionate about building a business that I truly love. I always say it's passion over profit is really what coined Creative Dynamics, and it truly is my number one driver. I always, whenever I have conversations with the moms on the team, single moms, they always are like, Brittney, I need help for X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I will do it. So it truly that fulfills me to know that I can also have that space for the women on my team, but then I also can be there as fulfilled on the other side too with my family.
I love that. I think that that's important to touch on the whole experience and the whole mission that you have of your business being passion over profit. I think that that's really important because sometimes when you're in the hustle and bustle of business and you're influenced by all these business coaches online, it's easy to want to be able to focus on a number that you make per month or, a certain amount of clients. So I love that. That's a big part of what you do because I think having your passion lead you is what will allow you to be in the business for a long haul. Because even in the past decade that I've been in the industry, it's really sad to see all the people come and go, and you can tell which people are in it exclusively for profits versus having their passion lead them along the way.
Exactly. I actually, when I first started my business, I wanted to have a coach along the way. That's why I became a certified business coach. I'm also a certified imposter syndrome coach. But really, I'm pretty don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm smart and very intuitive, know how to build things. My background is in tech. I have my BBA in marketing communications. I have all these other degrees. And so when I became stepping more into as an entrepreneur, I just wanted that extra mentorship, fellowship, and all these things. And so I hired someone down in the States. And the unfortunate thing, the number one thing that a lot of coaches do right now is promise you to get to the 10K, 6K. So it does not sit well with me. It drives me absolutely bananas. And so when I started my journey, I felt I don't want to say brainwashed, but I felt like I was convinced to do business a certain way. And I had the aha moment of no, that's not authentic to me. That's not authentic to how I want to build a business. And so what can I do to change this up? Um, so long story short, only recently I became more of like stepping more on my coaching and really talking more about imposter syndrome and all of that, because I really think if you build a business on your passion, you can really drive it forward.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And I've been there too. It's easy to kind of
Mhm.
fall victim to that, especially in the pandemic when everybody and their mother was becoming a coach, right? With all the
Yeah.
free time that they had, it was easy to get caught up it because it's everywhere. Like scroll, scroll, 10K months,
Yes.
5K months, right? So it's really beautiful to see how that you had that inner compass and that intuitive hit to be able to go inward. And I had a similar experience too. So I
Yeah.
think that's important. So, do you want to speak to your experience that you had with imposter syndrome? Because I think
Yeah.
that's something that every single person in business
Mhm.
has at one point in time. And some people, move through it, and
Yeah.
some people stay stuck in the imposter syndrome, chapter of business for way too long. So, do you want to speak about your time with it?
Yeah. So usually imposter syndrome can really show up for high achievers. So I am like a high achiever. I have like exceed like high expectations. If I don't exceed them, I have to put more expectations on me. So imposter syndrome really hits me. I'm also Metis, and it's also been found that if you have usually it affects those who are of color and or of a different kind of background, because usually you might have been kind of coined of not smart or a certain kind of expectation on you. So I also have dyslexia, and it's also supposed to show up for those who have learning disabilities a little bit more neurodiverse, because especially for me, like I was always put in a corner when I was growing up that, oh, Brittney doesn't pay attention in class, or Brittney's doing X, Y, and Z. She's not smart. She shouldn't be here. And so it's kind of like that upbringing of always being told that you're not good enough. And so I'm considered like the expert. I feel like I need to have all the degrees, all these certifications before I'm even allowed to move forward. But I also struggle being the perfectionist of I need everything perfect before I can even like go on stage or whichever show up as me. However, along my journey, I've found that it was holding me back a lot. And I also have, they're not really a coach per se. They're more of like a consultant, but I work with them a lot more directly. And like they're stuck with me for life now because I feel like they understand me, no judgment. And I feel like I'm really able to step into my own. And that's really what a coach or consultant should be doing, than really dictating where you should go. Like you could have advice, but really at the end of the day, it's up to you and how to move that position forward. Um, but with that said, like I feel like I've transformed really maybe the last 2 years of, yes, I know I have imposter syndrome, but that's the piece of what I love talking about is educating people more on imposter syndrome. And if we, the more of us who talk about it, the more we like, hey, did you know I experienced X, Y, and Z in the workplace or even as an entrepreneur, you're going to be surprised that a good chunk of us, believe it's 85% of us as entrepreneurs experience imposter syndrome of some point or another. And even like CEOs in itself is like 70%. So it really affects a lot of us as women entrepreneurs. And I really want to educate for any listeners who are not women, it doesn't discriminate. So it really affects a lot of us. And I like to challenge the narrative of us being more open, of kind of reframing judgment and really asking more curious questions versus just placing judgment on people. So imposter syndrome to me, it's kind of like my lighting fire. I like to say it's like another piece of my passion to educate a lot, because I feel like it's always been around, but right now it's been more of a trend to talk about it lately and
Yeah.
educate people a lot more. And so it's came all into like full circle. I feel like that it's that's what I like to do.
Yeah, those statistics are very interesting.
Mhm.
I almost think with all the people that I've come across that it would almost be more like almost I would say excuse me, almost everyone goes through
Yeah.
even a blip of it in their time. And in my experience with it, I had imposter syndrome comparing myself to the big people in, the personal development industry. Well, why wouldn't they work with Tony Robbins, or why wouldn't they, take a Bob Proctor course? That's kind of how it showed up with me, and dimming what I know because of comparing myself to other people. But what I've learned about my journey of impacting it for myself and for other people is how much of it is actually created because of our upbringing. And I know that you've shared a little bit when it came to your story about being different, of being Metis and having dyslexia and all of that. So if you were to speak a little bit more to that, of like, if
Mhm.
there was specific, little voices in your head that came up as your adult entrepreneur self that were connected to more to your
Mhm.
past. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Well, I'll go a little bit kind of on my heritage side a
Mhm.
little bit. I'm still learning my heritage. Unfortunately, I was through the generation of the brokenness of it, and so I'm kind of learning as I go. But I am Métis, and a lot of my family back home, they are maybe just a little bit more First Nation and so forth. And it was always a joke that we're always like, you can walk down the street and all of us are cousins, because it was just such a small town that I'm originally from. Um, but a lot of them came, lived a little bit on the reserve. We didn't, but some of my cousins did. And so sometimes if I had to be taking care of my relatives, that was like, these are things that I only remember growing up. And I don't remember a lot of my childhood trauma, I guess a lot of people would say. But being bullied of my background, or that my cousins were First Nation Indigenous. So it's just kind of something I used to like kind of hide behind, and I didn't want to talk about it because unfortunately with that stigma, it's kind of like you're not smart, or you must drink a lot and all these things. However, that's the thing that I really want us to shake up, and I think I'm slowly starting to talk more my voice a little bit more, as I'm like so proud to be Métis. I'm so proud to learn more of my culture and also educate my kiddos on it too, because I want them to know exactly where they're from. And so like, but along the years growing up in that kind of scale, it kind of affects you long term. Like I moved out of that small town, so but I remember bits and pieces of being bullied. And then even too when I moved into a more of a bigger town, it's just then that's when we found out that I have dyslexia, and just trying to even understand what that means and how that affects me as a person. Like I realize now today, I'm like such a visionary. And so if you like, I love working with clients and doing strategy because I know there's a way for us to map it out and figure it out. And it's just, I can't describe it, but it's like you tell me your dream and I was like, let's do it. But those things is like growing up with that self-doubt, because a lot of people were kind of always negatively talking to you. It takes a lot to really pull yourself out of it. And I worked in a very toxic work environment too. So I just feel like it's like one after another, kind of like stacking points. And so I've been doing entrepreneurship now for almost 5 years, and I'm still like quieting the noise of what things that I've been told that I felt like that was me, but trying to step more into my authenticity and also kind of challenge more narratives and be like, no, I don't agree with that. And this is why. Like, I'm still trying to find my voice, but I would say like this year, it's kind of like my era. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah,
But I've been
yeah.
doing a lot more speaking events and just challenging what people say a bit more. And like even like coach consultant that I was talking about, they're like, you have switched. Like I've never seen so much courage come from you and all these other things. Like I'm just so excited for you to keep going more in that thought leadership role. And that's kind of like the direction I really want to go, because I want us to try to challenge each other. And it's okay to ask questions. I find when we get asked certain questions, sometimes we get kind of pushed back a little bit, being like, why are they asking this? But I
Mhm,
think maybe if we switch the mind frame of not to judge and to ask more questions of like the why, like being more curious like kids are.
mhm.
How can we be more curious as kids and not judge others? And that's like the part with imposter syndrome I love to educate others on.
Yeah. Yeah, even this, you know, having this interview and hearing this
Mm.
conversation and a little bit about your past, I wanted to lean into that curiosity
Yeah.
because I think that when you start to understand what makes each individual person unique, their
Mhm.
story, their authentic path, what has led them to get to where they want to be, that almost helps with imposter syndrome because you get to see the similarities yet
Yeah.
differences that people have. Like, I may not be Metis like you, but when I
Mhm.
was a kid, I was bullied because of my hair. Having curly hair, I looked
Yeah.
different than other people, right? So it's really interesting to see how people can have different cultures, different
Mhm.
stories, different upbringings and experiences, bringing light and asking questions and leaning into curiosities
Yeah.
can create a sense of oneness and yet a sense of respect and a sense of knowledge that can unify us all together. Because
Mhm.
when we go through imposter syndrome, it's a big separation that happens in our
Yes.
experience. And I feel like that seems to be the through line when it comes to imposter syndrome of separation, making us less than them. Right.
Yes.
That's kind of how it presented for me. But how did imposter syndrome show up for you in those
Mhm.
moments in which that you experienced it most? Like, did you feel like there was some comparison going on? Like, what did that look like
Yeah.
for you?
I would say definitely a lot of comparison, and I think even now today with social media, it doesn't help.
Mhm.
So it's learning how to quiet those noises, really. Um, but, like, I was pretty quiet too, like, I would always review people, kind of like, "Is it safe to speak up here?" I didn't feel safe, so I wouldn't really even speak up. So really just more or less with seeing, like, how I started back in the back in the day, feels like 100 years ago. Uh, but I was very quiet, kept to myself, and a lot of things that, like, I'm sharing today, like, I've never told my parents about, and it's interesting to kind of, like, tap more into that self-awareness of trauma that maybe I've experienced to self-heal. And so that's part of, like, the whole I keep saying, like, the whole radio show for myself is, like, my self-healing journey because I'm talking on things that I've never talked about before or things that, like, even like, I know my mom's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like, I was just such a quiet girl and just wanted to be, like, the people pleaser, perfectionist, um, kind of situation. So, with imposter syndrome, it's kind of because I went through the schooling with Dr. Valerie Young, um, it was kind of interesting to go through that journey as well because I felt like I kind of self-healed in another way and realize that, oh, yeah, it is imposter syndrome that I'm feeling. It's like, how do I quiet that more when I'm feeling that anxiety? Because I have a mix of anxiety too. Like I'm self-diagnosed with ADHD. The more I've been doing my radio show, I've realized I've been doing a lot more research, and dyslexia is kind of correlated with ADHD. And like, oh, all makes sense.
Mm.
But the thing with imposter syndrome is that once you know how to acknowledge it, reframe the negative thoughts, then you're able to quiet the noise a bit more. And like it's by all means, it's always going to kind of show up in some way or another. Like you're never going to be able to completely, yes, I have no imposter syndrome. It's just how can we navigate and reframe those thoughts when they pop in our brain. Just unfortunately, like judgment. We all unfortunately judge others. It's another coaching course that I took. I can't remember the name for the life of me, but we have like different characteristics that represent each other. And the number one thing that always shows up for everybody is judgment. Unfortunately, we all go right into judgment. And so, how do we quiet that noise and start asking curious questions? One of these working exercises, what says too, like when you're an adult and you're looking at a picture by yourself when you're little, what would you tell that little person who you are today and what you wished you would have told them along the way as maybe if you didn't have that support that you needed.
Yes. No, I think those are some beautiful questions to
Mhm.
ponder on. And you were talking about this whole thing about awareness, right? Being aware that it is imposter syndrome that you are experiencing and you're going through. What does that sound like? What are the examples of the little voice in your head that maybe you went through or your clients went through
Yeah.
when it comes to being in a stage in a moment of imposter syndrome. Can you give
Yeah.
some examples to help people become aware of if
Mhm.
that's something they're actually experiencing?
I find sometimes it like holds you back a little bit. So say you're like envisioned to take your business to the next level and you're late and then all of a sudden you're procrastinating to get to that next point, or you're like, "Oh, well, I can do X, Y, and Z of like just a little bit, and I can just say that it's not done, and I don't have to actually execute it." So you're really at the end of the day is like, um, oh my goodness, I can't even think of the word at the moment. Mum brain coming at me. You're self-sabotaging. That's what I'm trying to say. So no matter what that's coming into you, vision for you, you end up somehow self-sabotaging yourself in a way that you
Mhm.
can't move forward. So you have to kind of look at it's going to affect different people. Like for perfectionists, for me, I'm not going to submit that paper, say, because you know what? I didn't put in that full 200% that I usually do. So I feel like I shouldn't hand this in or something like that, just to give
Right.
that kind of example. So when those things happen, I think it's important to know what kind of common trait you are. So there's like the perfectionist that sets unrealistic goals, the superwoman, superman that feels like they need to excel at all the things, the natural genius that believes that they need to really succeed naturally,
Mhm.
the stylist, who doesn't want to ask for help, and then if they ask for help, then they're not competent. Then the expert, that's me, that I need to take all these courses, all these programs before I like can even show up to
Yeah.
execute something because I'm going to feel that I'm not capable. So once you kind of narrow in those common types that you are, then you can maybe try to see a trend of what's coming up for you. Maybe you're self-sabotaging on not getting anything done in a timely manner because you're an expert and you feel like you shouldn't go up and speak on that topic because you haven't mastered learning it all in all different avenues that it can, if that
Yeah.
helps.
No, that's great. I love those examples that you shared. And
Mm.
I can resonate with the last one that you're speaking about of feeling like you had to take all the
Mhm.
courses. And I think it's really connected to the way that society's set up of, to be able to get a certain job in society, you need to have all these qualifications in your name to be considered, right? And I feel like when it comes to coaches and healers, that certification piece is huge. Like I need to be certified for people to see that I'm legitimate, that I'm qualified for people to be able to work with me. So
Yeah.
I remember in a stage early in my business, I was in like 3 courses at a time, like going and going and going and getting all these paperwork and all of these certifications. But then it was like when I came to integrating it for myself, I barely had time to integrate it for myself because there was
Mhm.
just so much going on. And I think that that's a loop that happens just so you feel like, again, I think it comes back to comparison. That's how it showed up to me, of, hey, they have more than me, so they're going to get more clients, right?
Yes.
When it comes to business, which I think is huge. And that whole connection with worth and value of feeling valuable enough to be able to be considered. I know
Yeah.
for myself and my clients too, like maybe that was the draw to take all these courses too. So you
Mhm.
feel like you're ready, right? I'm
Yeah.
not ready yet. I'm not ready yet,
Exactly.
being it's helpful.
Self-sabotaging in the
Mhm.
expert ways. I'm definitely like it's an ongoing joke with my family that I should have been a doctor by now with how many programs, certification, even too now, like I was even talking to somebody else, I was like, "Oh, well, maybe I should do this one because then that's gonna really put together all of my coaching underneath one hat." And they're like, "Girl, you just need to go do it." Like at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like you went through ACC or ICF, which is that's a huge milestone really for any coach. And for me, I'm just like that's where I'm like the expert person comes in and like always achieving more.
Mhm.
But it's like, what else can I do? What else can I add? What should I add over here? And really, at the end of the day, I should just now I've done my credentials. Let's focus in and really level it up. And so that's what I've been trying to tell myself. Like, no, you don't need to do more courses. You have so many courses.
That's
Um, so that I think it's just trying to remind yourself that step into what you've already established. And when you start learning that maybe you're like maybe not like fully aware in one area, be transparent with it with clients. And I have the attitude of I might not know now, but I will figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we educate ourselves more and be more open about that transparency with clients and or anybody that we're working with, I think they will just respect that you're being transparent and that you're willing to find out the solution for them.
Yeah, there's a level of authenticity and trust there,
Mhm.
which I think is really important for any coach and client relationship.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
if someone's listening and they're like, yes, I see all the signs. Yes, that's me. I am having imposter syndrome. What are three tangible steps that you can give them to start to shift out of that state and become
Mhm.
more in their authenticity and sharing their gifts with the world?
If it's showing up for you, I always say if you like to write things down, try writing things down. What are those things that are coming up? And so if maybe you're saying, I'm not good enough. I want you to like write that down and then turn it into a positive is one. And then another one that I like to tell clients is if you're comfortable enough, is writing them on like sticky notes and put them on your mirror. So something that kind of triggers your mind. And then also to saying it out loud. I feel like the more we say things out loud, it's just kind of like tapping more into that energy mind frame. Like I used to like live more in like the negative life in a way. Like I always felt like, why me? Why this? Now it's like, yes, I am. It's like positive affirmation. Yes, I deserve this. Yes, I'm stepping into my speaking area. Yes, I'm doing this. This is right. This is all coming into what I want to do and it's going to be successful. So, really trying to like see what your mind can switch, like doing the little writing down, speaking to yourselves really helps, I find myself, anyways.
Yes, yes, helpful for me too. I think having that awareness of how it shows up for you and
Mm,
consciously choosing to make that shift is
yes.
so important. Because sometimes we can fall victim to what our experiences that have happened in the past, how they're showing up for us still, how the little voice in our head is trying to get us to sit down and not be authentically ourselves and to dim ourselves in our light. So I think it's really powerful to take the reins and really use those tools like you shared to be able to shift your mindset because you have the power to do so, even in the moments that you feel like you don't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So if they're listening and they're like, yes, Brittany, I want her on my side. I want to be able to work with her and get a taste of what that experience may be. Do you want to speak a little bit to this beautiful bundle that you've created?
Yeah, so it's more for those in business. So it's a bundle of like how to outsource when you're building your business, because Creative Dynamics is like a done for you service. So we can do administration, marketing. So it kind of outlines like when you're ready to outsource, um, what to consider. And then the other scale of it is kind of like an accounting Excel spreadsheet. So usually business owners struggle with keeping their books in order. So it has like a little spreadsheet, two different kinds of spreadsheets, that one, and then a sales pipeline. And then it also has the imposter syndrome workbook as well. Because I find business owners, as you're new, maybe you're ready to scale, you're really kind of suffering with imposter syndrome. So it also has a workbook on imposter syndrome. So it's a big bundle, what I've kind of been curating over the years, and I've decided to just make it one big bundle.
Amazing. We're going to leave a link to the in the show notes and the description of this video for you to pick up the bundle. Is there any other places that they can connect with you to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, I'm way more active on Instagram, so you can just follow me at Creative Dynamics VA and just send me a direct DM. I manage the account, and then we can connect further there.
Amazing. And do you want to speak to your radio show before we wrap up
Yeah.
today about the purpose of it, the mission, where they can
Mhm.
tune in?
Yeah, so it's all interconnected. So the radio show is called Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. And the whole premise came actually during my whole coaching journey. I felt like I was really struggling with standing up for myself because I have dyslexia. I asked for extra time for my exams, all these things. And I just felt like it was just getting such a pushback on all these areas. And so I got really frustrated. And the biggest part of the show is breaking down social norms. So we talk about ADHD, autism, dyslexia, like all the things neurodiversity wise. I have educators to teach us and just really educate listeners on different ends. We also talk, I like to break norms in different ways too. So I've had um, guests on the show on sex trafficking and censorship for kids, as I have kiddos. So it's like learning for myself too. And then the other side of it is just telling everybody that we are worthy of whatever we want to pursue. So even if you're in a 9 to 5, going up for that senior level job and or starting your own business dreams, that we're all worthy to pursue whatever, and no one's allowed to dictate that.
Well, such a powerful message. So many beautiful guests. I'm sure I'm lucky enough to be one. So we're going to leave
Excited.
a link for you to tune in. Where can they listen?
You can come watch live on Creative Dynamics YouTube channel. So it's Monday at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 3 Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time. It's live on the United Public Radio Network, so you can also listen over there as well. So you have multiple places. It's on Heart Radio. It's everywhere.
Yes, yes. We'll leave links so that you can definitely tune in. Brittney, it's been such a pleasure
Yeah.
learning more about you, your story. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and your story with us today. It means so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I'll upload a new video on Thursday. See you in the next one. Bye.